Welcome, everyone. It's been a while since we've done a podcast, but we have a very special one for you today. So wherever you are listening from or watching from, if this is on YouTube, make sure you grab your coffee, tea, water, or just keep your hands on the wheel if you're driving.
Please do. But you can just listen while you're cleaning or driving or whatever.
Yeah, we've got some things that God has been speaking to us that I wanted to talk to Brandon about, and so I'm just going to let you into our conversation on things that I've been learning.
I think you're going to hear a lot more Brigitte in this one, which makes my heart happy and will probably make your ears happy.
So buckle up, let's go.
Boom.
So here we are again. It's been a while.
It's been a minute, yeah.
It's been more than a minute, yeah. And I was like, you know what, we should just record. Because otherwise we're not gonna.
Yeah, that's kind of how that works. And we get busy. A lot has happened since the last time we sat here and did this.
Gosh, I don't even remember when we sat here last.
Well,
when we did our intro.
The last time we recorded an episode was with Ryan, and that was in November.
Oh my gosh, and it's now March.
Many things have occurred.
Many.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, do you want to do a recap and then...
We can do a quick recap, yeah.
Okay. We'll do a quick recap in case you haven't
rebranded your channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of solidified what the business side of the coaching thing's going to look like.
Yeah.
And I actually started doing it, which is good.
Yeah. We've got some clients.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still living in the same place.
We haven't moved.
No.
But you niched down. We had done that at that point. We hadn't talked a lot about it. You were focusing just on busy moms.
Mm-hmm. Well, aside from all the business stuff, I feel like we've just been learning and like just going through a lot in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we were having some good conversations, and I just felt like we should just record it.
Yeah.
Because maybe other people will find value and relate.
So what was it that we were talking about that made you feel like, yeah, I want to get this on camera?
It's not necessarily that I want to get it on camera because, you know, I'm an introvert and I just like to be alone. Yeah. And when I have thoughts, I just like say them and then, I don't know, move on.
But you did this thing today where you talked to me. And I was like, oh my gosh.
He says this like I don't talk to him ever or something,
no,
which is not the
like
case.
You opened up about your feelings, which we do. We talk about all the things, but it's not usually that you do it without me prodding a bit, I feel like.
Yeah, well, some people have self-reflection and introspection, like it comes easier to them.
Yeah.
Like you. It doesn't come easy for me. I don't like sometimes feeling the feels, and I try to avoid them.
Yeah. How dare you let me feel feelings, you dealers.
But I just felt like, you know, I was learning and having some new perspectives and felt like God was kind of changing my heart. And obviously, so then I wanted to share it with you because, you know, you're my husband.
It's true. We've been married for, what?
Almost 10 years?
Yeah. No, I thought you said something.
No.
Yeah, it has been over 9 years. This year will be our 10th year anniversary of our matrimony.
That's true. So, yeah, I just thought we could talk about what we've been learning since we did go through a huge transition in the last year. And I know there are seasons where people go through huge transitions, and sometimes it takes a lot to kind of feel more normal, and it can take a toll on you.
Yeah.
And so now that we are almost to the year of when you went out on disability, you know, a year seems like such a long time when you're looking forward, but when you look back, a year is so short.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of recap. Who knows, maybe we'll listen to this in 10 years and be like...
Oh, my gosh.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, we were talking about two different things here. One is kind of your revelations and things we were discussing today. 3 different things. Two is kind of what we're doing with business, and 3 is where we've been in the last year.
Yeah.
So what is it you wanted to hit right now?
What was I talking about earlier?
Many things. We talked a little bit about your internal struggle with, I guess, pessimism. Mm-hmm. And, living in freedom from that as opposed to feeling like you had to be that way because you've been that way. I think that was a theme of what we discussed. For a number of things. We talked about politics, and we talked about COVID, and we talked about the Ukrainian
Well, I don't
situation.
think we're talking about that on the podcast.
All those words I just said were flagged by YouTube, 100%.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, babe.
Here, I'm here to serve. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I think that, I guess I'll just kind of recap what I was saying to you in the car, is that, like the Bible talks about this dual nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, so yes, we have an old self, but also God gave us a new self, and he actually does away with the old self.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had this thought, and I feel like a lot of people do too, that, okay, so I became a Christian, but I'm still in this body, so it's always going to be this like fight, you know? But
like, you know, you're new, but it's still the same. But I'm still old me, right? That kind of thing.
yeah, well, and how Paul's like, you know, what I want to do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, I do. And so there's always like this trouble. And it's like, yes, we're not perfect because we're still in this body. But I heard an analogy from a podcast, and I thought it was really good. So it was like, okay, you get a new self when you become a Christian. You believe that Jesus is Lord. He is God. He came on earth to die for our sins on the cross and made a way for us to have a right relationship with him. So our old self is like this like smashed car that's going to the car lot to be just like recycled. Like it's just, there's nothing left of it. No parts can be used. Like it's just dead. It's like small and flat and going to wherever they take those cars. And
the junkyard, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if they even take them to the junkyard because they're nothing. Like,
like cars
just,
that have been crushed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea.
So that is your state in the old self. You're nothing. Like you have so much sin, you're just dead. So we become a Christian, we believe in Jesus, and he doesn't take that old car and then start patching it together and until he can say, well, hey, look what I did. Like, here's the new car. Like, look what, you've become now. He's like, no. I'm sending that car to the junkyard or wherever, and I'm giving you this, whatever, XYZ car that you really like, that's really nice, has a lot of power. And he's like, no, get out of yours and into this car because this is me. Like, this is the power I give you because it's mine. You are totally new. There's nothing about the old self that you need to hang on to. It is dead, gone, like goodbye. You now operate with Christ in you. And so that's the car you have. That's the power we can have as we go through life, because if we've invited Christ in to be our Lord, then why are we still in bondage to this like other car? Like, we have new life and we have a totally different life. And I think that a lot of people, myself included, don't live in that freedom because it's like we don't think we can have it, or especially in the case where like you struggle with something constantly, like, well, it's just the way I am, and I'll never change, or I've tried, I've read the books, I've done all this and that, and you just think that it's your thorn in the side, or it's just the thing you're always going to deal with, and you just accept it, which is awful because that is not what God came to earth to do, for us to just accept that sin is always going to be there. He came to give us life, and life to the full, to live in freedom. So why would I just accept that this thing that I've always struggled with is going to be there? No. Instead, it's like, think about it as I've already, not me, but like Christ has already won this. So I don't need to do that. Like, I've already have victory over it because of Christ in me. Like, he has already taken that to the cross and nailed it and finished it. So why do I still think that is part of my life? I think it's just like a mindset shift, because I'm still going to live in this body until I go to heaven. So the things that come with the flesh nature, it's not like they go away. When you get married, like, it's not like you just don't see other people anymore, but you choose to focus on other things. And I think it's not that those things are not there, but we choose to focus on the fact that Christ is in us. So it's like not what was that saying? You don't think less of yourself, but you think of yourself less. So it's not that I don't think that, the struggle in the flesh is real, but it's that I just don't think about it. I don't give it the power by thinking about it. Instead, I focus on God and what he wants me to do and what he's already done. And like, he is my focus.
Yeah.
Knowing him is my focus, not what can I do to overcome this? What does God say I need to do? What can I check boxes to? It's like, no, Christ already did that. I just need to lean into him and like get to know him, because it's only through him that we live and move and have our being. Like, it's all about him anyways. And if that is not the focus, then all else is like rubbish, as Paul says, and it's nothing.
I think two things on that. Three things. One, please keep your train of thought, because this is killing, like, it's wonderful. Two, I love when you talk. I love hearing what's in your brain. It reminds me of so many of the reasons why I love you, and I'm glad I married you. And three, the book that you're trying to remember the quote from, you were pretty spot on. It's not about, the paraphrase would be like, it's not thinking more or less of yourself, like more I'm better, I'm worse. It's thinking less about yourself. Like, it's not about you, it's about Jesus and how you reflect his character. The book is called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness by Tim Keller. I don't know if there's one down here. You just organized the books.
We have one down here.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'll do is we'll go ahead and put a link down in the description. It's probably pretty cheap. It's probably like less than $15.
Yay big.
It might be way less than that. It's a little paperback. It's super dense. Like, it's really dense reading, but in the best way, in the like, I have to read that paragraph 3 times kind of way. I recommend it for any Christian or anybody who's ever thought about being a Christian to read. It's really a wonderful aid, and I think recognizing the enormity and the importance of who God is and his greatness in light of who you are and the way we look at ourselves. And it's like, well, why am I so important that it matters what I think of myself? Like, what is it? It's not that I'm no good, right? It's that God is great, and it doesn't matter what I think of myself because he thinks I was valuable enough to die for, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, our nature, our human nature, sin nature is to think I, like always. Like, we see a picture of a family, like our family. Who do you go to immediately? You go to find yourself in that picture, and you look to see how good you look in that picture. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Everyone does it. They don't look at everyone. No, they immediately find themselves in the picture, and that's just our nature, because we are selfish, and our first thought is usually of ourselves. And so it's not like thinking more or less of yourself, like, because either extreme is not good. Like, you think more of yourself and you're prideful and you're boasting and that's not good. But then you think less of yourself and you're like, oh, I'm the worst, and you're self-deprecating and you're just thinking, oh, I'm so terrible, which is actually pride in disguise. So neither of those options is a good thing, but it's just thinking about yourself less because you're focusing on something more, which is God and him. Like, all focus should be on him, And so I don't know, like, that in relation to, like, things that, I just assume were just part of being me. Like, always thinking of, like, the negative in a situation as my first go-to. And, just, like, how it affects my whole day and how, like, it can change my whole attitude and totally take away my joy. And with no joy, like, I have no strength, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. And so if I lose that, then it's like I just keep losing and losing. And so it's like, well, why do I let that affect me, And just thinking about it differently, like, I don't need to overcome. Like, Christ has already overcome that. I just need to live in it. Like, I just need to recognize it and be like, God already overcame this. Like, I don't need to struggle with this. I can move on. Like, I don't have to succumb to that, because that is what Satan would want, to succumb to everything that takes us away from God, because he doesn't want us near God, And so it's like, yeah, just a mindset shift. So
one of the passages that has been really valuable to me forever as a Christian since early on in my walk has been Philippians 4:8. I think it's 8. Just listing off, Paul is writing to this church in Philippi, and he's like trying to set a perspective change, like on everything, right? In Philippians 2, he's like, hey, consider others better than yourself, right? This is big. He's like, hey, no, focus on others better than yourself. Okay, so this is big. Philippians 4, he's talking about having joy in the midst of trial, and he's giving us, I think, a methodology for this, almost a prescription. And he says, hey, anything that's good and honorable and worthy of praise, there's this whole list of attributes of these things. And he says, this stuff, that's what you focus on. Now, he doesn't. It's interesting. And it's like self-fulfilling. He doesn't go in and say, hey, don't focus on the bad stuff and the pain and the sorrow. Because he just said focus on the good stuff, right? He just said focus on all these positive things. Mm-hmm. And I'm not perfect at that. I struggle with malaise and little bouts of depression and stuff, and I don't mean that in a big, grand clinical sense, but like I get down in a heavy way from time to time, but it's something that I think by and large I'm able to turn that and be hopeful, or like grin and bear it, or find the silver lining and just focus on that. And I think that's one of the things that hasn't been a huge struggle for me, where I think it is for you frequently. And I'm tempted, I think, throughout our whole marriage to be like, well, that's just how she is. Mm-hmm. And not in a like, oh, I wish, she wasn't that way. Like, I wish you didn't have to struggle with that. Mm-hmm. But in a like, well, it is what it is. I'm going to just make the best out of it. And in the last few years, I've finally learned I can't change that. But at the same time, there are things that I struggle with. Right, whether it is some mindset stuff, some of it's what I eat, struggling with my weight that you don't understand because you a scrawny chick. Like, okay, you can eat the planet and lose weight. It's very frustrating, but it's a struggle that you don't understand, and I think that you've tried not to make worse. You've tried to be helpful with. You don't know how to encourage me through it because you don't understand it. And today, actually, the first time when you were talking about your struggle with some of the pessimism or like choosing to look at the negative aspects of things, I've never really considered that those two have a parallel until that moment, in that they're both something that the other person doesn't struggle with the same way. And it I think it gave me new perspective, because if I assume that you just is the way you are, you're going to struggle with it, and I love you, and that's never going to change, right? I'm never going to go anywhere, but like that's just a thing that comes with you. Isn't that assuming, not that I can change it, but that you can't, or not that it's about whether or not I can change it, because that's irrelevant in both cases, but rather like it can't be changed. So it's not assuming that, but isn't it assuming that you can't change it through the power of Christ?
Right.
Right? And in the same way, like, wouldn't that mean then that my struggle with weight just is the way it is? I'm always going to struggle? And I don't think that's true, because I don't think that these things that have roots in sin or the old man or the flesh or whatever, I don't think these things are identifying traits of a person who has been born again.
Right.
Right? This is not regenerated living. This is not living life to the full. Both of these things are things that I don't think are God's will for our life.
No, I agree.
And if that's the case, shouldn't we believe? Shouldn't I believe? Shouldn't you believe?
Yeah.
That he will, or that he wills for it to not be a thing for us.
Yeah. No, I agree. And two things. Number one, you said sorrow. You've been listening to some Canadians over there.
No, why would you think that?
It's sorrow.
What's that about?
Number two brings me to how I used to think, and when I say used to, I mean like yesterday, that whenever I would bring up you know, maybe the pessimistic side or the negative side of something. It's like, well, I'm just being a realist. Like, I'm just acknowledging like the other parts of it, or I'm just, you know, whatever. Like, you have to say the other side of it. You know, you have to show both sides. And it's like, yes and no. And I see this a lot also on social media, but it's like, I always thought I had to acknowledge the negative to point out that it's real. And it's like, no, it's real whether I point it out or focus it on it or not.
Right, it is what it is.
But the great power comes in knowing that it's there, but choosing not to speak it, to bring it, to give it the time of day. Like, but by focusing on the positive and speaking the positive and speaking out the life and speaking things that can and will happen, you know, in God's name, like, those are the things that we should be speaking. Like, when Benjamin says, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it on his homework. No, you can do it. Say, I can do it. Yeah. And
he's like, what? I can't. He said, no, I can. I'm like, yeah, you can.
You can do it. And you are smart and you are capable and you are resourceful. And speaking those things into him, because he will live up to the potential that we give him. Like, he will, if I expect him to do something, he will live up to that. And so it's like, God expects for us to live and walk in freedom, because that's what he has come for us to do. And when we aren't, like, how sad would he be? Like, how sad is he? Like, when Benjamin was like, I can't do it. And I was like, no, Ben, like, you can. Like, because I know he can. And whether it be through my help or because I already know he has it in him, he can do it. And that's like, makes me sad when he thinks he can't. He puts these constraints on himself. And we do the same thing with whatever it is, like the sin that, you know, we face every day. Like, God's like, no, I've given you already victory over that. Why? No, don't even give it the time of day. Like, just focus on me, focus on what I've done, focus on the good things that he talks about in Philippians, like whatever is true, good, noble, like just, like those are the things that deserve our attention and time, like not the other stuff. But I used to think that, like, you have to acknowledge, you have to say it, you have to acknowledge it. It's like, no, don't even, like, and I'm not talking, like, obviously we don't believe into the, like, oh, speak it into the existence, like, movement kind of thing that's out there. Like,
but like you're saying, go ahead.
But just saying and focusing on the good and speaking that out to live in that, you know?
I mean, okay,
not manifestation stuff is what I was talking about. Like,
yeah, I got you. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't believe if I say I have $1 million, like, it's going to automatically appear to me. Like, I'm not talking about that. But,
you know, I think it's like, okay, two things are true. Both, today was a beautiful day, and the weather was really nice, and we got to spend a little time outside with the kids, and we had a new friend come over, and we got to counsel somebody. That's true. Also, thousands of lives are being changed forever in a horrific attack in Ukraine. Both things are true.
Right.
Now listen, should we help if we can? Should we be praying for the people of Ukraine and praying for the people of Russia and praying for everybody involved in this situation and donating to a good cause if it seems reasonable and we feel led to do that? Yes. But, you know, Jesus said in Matthew 6:30-ish, who among you can add a day to his life by worrying, right? An hour. You know, don't worry about tomorrow. It has enough worry about itself. We should do things that we can do and be responsible and care. But if I spend my time worrying and being inundated by every little news update, which I have a temptation to do, I have to struggle with that, about what's going on in every war, which is there's always war happening. Always. We just ignore it in Western society, but that's a whole other thing. But if I spend my time doing that, it would be true. I would be focused on the thing that's true. Also, if I spent my time focusing on the fact that I got to spend really nice family time today, we had a nice visit with somebody, and I had a really yummy food my wife made me, if I spend my time focusing on that, you know what? That's equally true. I get to choose which one I focus on, right? If I'm looking, right now I'm looking at you and the curtain on the sliding glass door behind you. I'm looking at two things. They're both there, but my focus is on your face because that is a fine face, girl. That is better than the curtain behind you, right? They're both equally there, but I'm focusing on you, not the curtain, because focusing on the curtain is not going to help me. It's not going to make my life better.
Right. And I think that's kind of, too, you know, when we picked the conversation back up here in the office, like, later in the day, it's like, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so like focusing on the good things. So then it's like, there's so many good things. Like you have something like 86,000 seconds in the day. What are you doing with those seconds? Like, what am I focusing on with the time that I have? Because the time I have is so limited and precious. And it's like, do I have something big enough to focus on? Like, I think when we don't have a goal, a dream, like something bigger than ourselves, then we tend to just fall into whatever is convenient or there or societally accepted. Is that a word? Societally?
Societally, I think is a word, but let's just roll with it.
Okay. Then I will mindlessly scroll on the internet. I will, do whatever, like things that in the end they didn't need to be done. They don't need to be done. Like they're just pointless. Like, I don't know, sweeping your house every single day. Well, do you need to waste 15 minutes every single day? No, you probably do it every other day or every week. Like, you know what I mean?
Preach.
So it's kind of like, what are you being intentional with your time with? And is it big enough to cause you to prioritize in that way such that can be accomplished, And so that's why I say also like with the work stuff we were talking about, because, we aren't going to stay in the same place. We have something bigger that we want to work towards. So it's like, are we living towards that in our time, or are we wasting our time? And then we kind of talked about how at this point in our life, almost 10 years into marriage, we're not choosing good versus bad things, like we've gotten to a place where it's either a good thing or the best thing for us,
that's good.
And those things are good and best. They're both good. They're not bad. So either one, it's not like you would go wrong, but it's like, do you want the good thing or do you want the best thing? You know?
It's like, when we've grown so much in the last decade of marriage almost, right? Like we are doing good things, right? So do the good things. But you realize that that's relative because it's, if you have the option to spend your time on something, let's make it monetary so it's easy and numerical. If you have the option to spend your time on something that will give you $100 per hour, or something that will give you $1,000 per hour. Listen, $100 an hour is great. Like that's nuts.
But
I will do $100 an hour.
$1,000 an hour.
Yeah, 1,000's better, but like 100's still good, right? I didn't do 1,000, but I did 100. But yeah, like what if I did 1,000?
Right.
But we've gotten used to the 100, right? So how do we shift ourselves into the mindset where we're like, no, I'm not going to get to do this thing, but I'm going to place a value on that, and that value is not as important to me as the other thing. And I think part of it has to do, I think, with actually writing out what our priorities are. You know what we should do again? It's priority maps.
Did we do one before?
You remember we did that? You did that. We both did one in Kaleo.
Oh.
With the circles.
Yeah. Yeah, we should. And what do we also talk about doing? Oh, the prayer board.
Prayer wall, yeah.
Yeah, prayer wall. Yeah, we should do those things. But it's like...
Those would be best things, not good things, I think. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Instead, we'll mop.
Huh?
Instead, we'll mop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the vision and then the priority. And then it's when you have something greater and you're working towards the best thing and not just like the good thing, you don't have FOMO. Like you don't have fear of missing out because you're working towards something that is great. So it's
You've
like
chosen. It's not working towards something accidentally.
Right. And it's not like, but I'll miss what so-and-so is doing. And it's like, yeah, but so what? I got this thing I'm doing and like it's exciting to me and I'm so like I don't care what else is happening, like I want to do this thing, and then it's easy to prioritize and say no to things, because no one likes to be left out or miss out on things, and it's just like, but when you have something you're working towards, like you don't mind because you're working towards something.
But you need goals.
Right.
Like you need goals, and to have goals, you need to know where you're going, and that requires some vision. And I think literally writing it out and being specific and saying, this is where I'm going. And there's like this exclusivity thing I think people get upset about subconsciously, maybe, where they're like, yeah, but if I say I'm going there, well, what about all the other places I could go? But you know how many of those places you're going to go to if you do it accidentally? Like, we're going to this conference in May. We would never go there accidentally.
Right.
It wouldn't happen. Now, because we're going there, we're going to miss out on all the things locally that could be happening that week. We could have a dear friend that throws a birthday party that we really want to go and support them, or some awesome thing could happen at church, or you could pick up a bunch of shifts at work and make a bunch of overtime, which you don't really probably want to do. But anything that could happen here, we don't get to do because we are saying yes to something else. You don't have to say no to good things. You just have to say yes to better things. And so we're saying yes to this other thing, which automatically says no to all the other good things. But isn't it better to pick the thing you're gonna be spending your time on? Pick the thing that's gonna be your priority, and say, these things I'm gonna prioritize above the other ones.
Yeah, and I feel like you, by choosing, like, you're being proactive in your life. You're not just accepting. You're not just. It takes you out of the victim mentality of, oh, well, this happened to me today. It's like, all right, well, what did you do to your day in response? Like, not just, oh, this happened and now I have no control.
Like, oh, I had a bad day at work and people were really annoying and the computer kept printing out orders, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, mind shift today. Don't hold me accountable for the last
No. I just
10 years.
I just love hearing you say it. And like, this is part of why I married you. Brag moment. Because I knew that there were going to be things that came up that we disagreed on, or that you struggled with and I didn't, or vice versa, and then we would have marital discord on some things. But I also believed, and this has been like my line about you since day one, and I love that, and I love that you still keep proving it true, and that God is faithful, that you will do whatever you believe is that which aligns you with God's word and will for your life, even when you don't like it. And that keeps happening. And it's like, yes, we're in the right place together.
And I just like Benjamin saying I can't today on my homework. It's just like,
Oh, it killed my heart. That's why I got on it.
Like, I don't ever want to say I can't,
Like,
you
no,
know?
yeah.
And I don't want him to hear me ever say that. And I don't want him to believe he can't, you know? So, you know, I just want us to model, you know, because there are so many things like that we could have said I can't, and God was like, no, you will. And it's like, don't put God in a box. Like, don't really. It's just boxing ourselves in, because you can't put God in a box. But, you know, like, don't. Like, God has so much more for us. And I think it's just time for us to walk in that freedom, like in so many areas, you know. And I just want to model that for our kids, like, so bad.
So what's next?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we should write out our priority thing. Not like in this moment,
Right.
But
like, what's the one thing you want to see change based on what you're saying right now? Like today, like what tomorrow? What are you going to do different? What do you feel like you want to see different?
When I encounter something that is less than desirable, you know, situation or a feeling or whatever, I just want to say, Lord, you've already given me victory over this. Change my eyes to see that, you know, change my heart to be in line with you. And I don't want to succumb to, you know, Satan's games or lies.
Discouragement.
Word. So, I don't know, just kind of what I want to talk about, because I felt like it was life-changing for me, so maybe someone else needed to hear that. I think, too, you know, we talked about just being faithful where God has us. So, we've talked about in the past where we've mentored people and felt left down and like let down, felt left down, felt
left out or let down? You're
let down,
left down.
let down by them, because of decisions they made or whatever, which obviously we have nothing to do with their decisions.
But it's hard.
But it's hard when you've poured time and energy into someone and then, you just feel deserted and, it makes you not want to do it sometimes. And God just, was speaking. It was like, I didn't, ask you I didn't ask you to live their life or make their decisions. I asked you to just speak what truth I've given you and teach them what I'm telling you and be a light to them. And then I'll handle like the rest. Like they're responsible obviously for themselves. And so it kind of gave me peace because we're only responsible for what God's asking us to do, not for the decisions that other people are making. And so I was just thinking like, then that's all I'm going to do. Like I'm going to do what God's asking me to do because that's what he's going to hold me accountable to. And whatever happens is still in his hands. Like he is sovereign. And so I think just still being faithful to do what he's called us to do, like videos and podcasts and things where I just feel like no one really needs to hear what I have to say. Like I'm a voice in a million voices out there. Like who wants to listen to me? I have nothing of value to say, and that's a lie because
that's right.
Christ doesn't say that.
I've been with you for almost 10 years and I still want to hear everything you have to say.
And so I think combating those thoughts and knowing that God created me for a purpose and I need to walk in that purpose.
Yeah.
And that means not believing the lies that I don't have anything to say.
I'm excited to go on the adventure with you, baby.
Word. So until we meet again, don't forget. Life is better together. Awa ma awa. Hello. Agua. Jesus loves me this time.